Hello, friends, and welcome to Binge O'Clock, the podcast where we watch something and then we talk about it. I'm Joy Selden, and I've seen almost everything.
I'm Danielle, and I've seen almost nothing.
I'm Nella, and do we have to get back to the plot? Because I feel like the plot is where the pain lives.
Oh, yes. Did we not tell you about... I mean, that should just be up front before you ever watch Fringe.
There was definitely a lot of warning that there would be no happiness here.
Nope.
And I think we're hitting that hill crest. And it's only downhill from here in my estimations.
Yeah.
I don't see any happiness anymore.
In a show that would kill someone as beautiful as Charlie, there is no happiness.
No.
There is none.
I like that that's your gauge. I appreciate that on a deep personal level.
Yeah, I really do feel like we're getting into... Now the show is just trying to hurt me personally.
You know, here's all I'll say. It doesn't get better, and it may in fact get worse. And I just want you to be... I just want you to be prepared.
I don't know if there's any preparing me for this, but I guess we must just push through.
Especially since after these 3 episodes, we're coming up on the 2-part finale.
Oh, yikes. Okay. All right.
Yikes.
Yikes. Well,
yes, there is the 2-part finale coming up. But first, on this episode, we watched Fringe Season 2, episodes 19 through 21, where... Yes, we got a little bit more of the plot, and then we had 2 let's not break your heart too harshly episodes directly after that.
I mean, so true. But even the musical episode, which we will absolutely get to, had a really, I don't know, sad note running all the way through it.
Yes. I agree with you on that. I almost feel like we should talk about the musical episode and the Northwest Passage first, and then get to the plot, unless you guys want to take it in order.
No, I think that's how we kind of have to tackle it, because in a way, like, the 2 episodes we're about to talk to, which come after the first episode, it was definitely some breathing room for the Band-Aid that got ripped off in a really not great way.
A little levity, shall we say.
Yeah.
Just a little.
Yeah.
Not a lot.
Is it levity, or is it just like... Okay, we know this is a deep black sadness. How do you like musicals? Although, I have to be honest, the way you guys were talking up this musical episode, I thought there'd be more music. I felt this was very light on the musical front.
It was light on the music. Perhaps other people on this call know more about the show's cast than I do, but this is perhaps the most music the cast could have handled.
I believe that. I also can't believe, or maybe I can believe, but that the framing device of this episode is Walter is high.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
telling Ella a story.
I should have seen that coming. And yet, it surprised me.
You know, what's great about that was the plot episode we watched ended, and then Nella was like, I'm sorry, the musical episode comes after that, and it opens with that bong hit, and I was like, well, Peter runs away in his own way, and Walter runs away in his own way, and that's exactly what we got.
Ella.
And also Ella. Look, I was very happy to see Ella. I was also very happy that Walter knew enough about his current state that he was like, I'm not well enough to take care of a small child. Are you kidding? And then like poor Astrid is like, I think she's talking to me.
Yeah.
The responsible adult in the room. Yes, she's talking to Astrid.
At which point Walter wanders away because Ella is trying to play with Jean, and he says, "Careful, Stella! No, Jean, no licking, no licking." And I was like, yes. You called another character by the wrong name.
Thank God.
It was perfect. Anyway, yes, the musical episode.
Yeah, the musical episode is... I think it's a couple of parts, like, this is what the cast could actually carry. And also, look, I will forever be mad that Michael Severus didn't get a song, because he is a Broadway trained actor who plays September, and he's been on Broadway for like 30 plus some odd years, and I'm just like, are you kidding me right now?
And he was in the episode. It's not like, oh, the schedules didn't line up, and so he just wasn't available. Character. He was literally in the episode.
He's a tertiary character. He's hardly ever there. He was in like 3 or 4 scenes.
Can I ask a question? Wait, actually, sorry. Finish what you were saying first.
No. I mean, I also understand how weird it would have been to have him break out into song, I think was my only last point for that. Like, I get it, but at the same time, I'm like, what a waste of talent. What a waste. This is like season 2 of Gallivant, where I was so excited to see Anthony Stewart Head play Gallivant's father again, and they recast him. And I was so angry because it was an entire episode of his father singing.
Oh.
And I was like, how dare
you? How interesting. I think I saw season 1 of that show, but not season 2.
It was okay.
Anyway, we're not here to talk about Gallivant. We're here to talk about Fringe. And my question is, can Joshua Jackson sing? Does anyone know? Or does he just... I mean, he's played the piano kind of several times in this show, but they didn't even have him attempt.
I don't know. I don't know. Unsure.
Listeners, get at us. Tell us if Joshua Jackson can sing.
There's that Joshua Jackson 1422 fan who like pop up and be like, actually, please tell us if he can sing.
I know this episode was light on the music, and I love most musical episodes, not all musical episodes. However, I still really like this one. I really, really, really like this episode. Maybe more than I should. I'm not really sure whether it's just that it pulls at my heartstrings in exactly the right way, which listeners of this show will know is my catnip, or whether it is,
I mean, is it Bill for Danielle? Probably.
Probably.
Did Broyles have arguably the best number in the entire thing? Yes.
Yes. Broyles and Astrid. I think Astrid killed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Astrid was clearly the stronger vocal talent of the people on the show.
So if they wanted to make it a truly musical episode, what they would have had to do is make it an episode about Broyles and Astrid.
Yeah.
It would be one of those... It would be one of those twist on an episodes where there is an entire Fringe case going on, but then you see it from the perspective of the characters that you don't usually get to see it from. That actually would have been really, really fun.
I mean, I think that would have been great. I've seen other musical episodes do this where they do hire classically trained singers to sing instead.
Mm-hmm.
They just find somebody who sounds similar to the actor and they try to pull it off that way. Personally, there's part of me that like understands why they do that. And there's another part of me that's like, what if you just had actors that didn't sing? Which I think this one accomplishes pretty well. I really enjoy this musical episode as well, just because I like musicals where the music is incidental, because it feels very natural, where you might have a family who is, somebody in the family likes to play a piano and they like to sing around the piano. And maybe not everybody is like a 5-star singer, but that's what they do, and like there have been musicals like that. I think my brain is only coming up with one at the moment, and it's like Meet Me in St. Louis, which was all this incidental music that a kid would be singing to themselves, and that was the song.
And it's not the character necessarily having an emotional epiphany or suddenly connecting with someone else. You could almost lift the music out and the plot would still stay intact.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, that's a really good point. I did like that about this episode.
And there's something about that I appreciate, because you can, when you don't have classically trained singers, or have them, but don't use them, whatever.
We're not bitter.
We're not bitter at all. If you don't have something like that, then having incidental music is the best way to really do a musical episode. And I think their choices of music were really good, and it wasn't necessarily like too poppy or too jazzy and too, like they didn't choose too many standards that made you think of something else. If that makes sense. Like, it didn't evoke other things. Like, they fit the narrative. And yeah, I like this episode. It's cute.
It's very cute. Like I said, pulls
even
it
with
all
the
of,
singing,
all of my
singing
heartstrings.
corpses.
Even with the singing corpses. I just with everything about it. I know that it's a little silly, that the entire mystery is about someone else stealing someone else's heart, and I know that it's gimmicky, and I don't care. I don't care.
I mean, like, again, we see that theme of, like, Walter is a monster, and, you know, Walter tries to also paint himself as not a monster, and just doesn't even lie about, like, where he comes up with his stuff, but, like, the lie of omission of, like, not actually saying where his, you know, where all his the goodness in the world that he creates actually comes from. And, like, the character of Peter in the dream, in this, like, you know, story sequence being like, yeah, except I know where it comes from. And I found out, and I was like, how could I give my heart to a man like that? You know,
well, this is Walter telling the story, right?
Exactly.
So, since it is Walter telling the story, he is admitting that he has injured 147 children, which is the number they gave us in this episode. Possibly the number is more. I'm not actually sure. But this is Walter admitting that he is a monster and that he didn't just bring goodness into the world. He brought in quite a bit of evil, right?
Right.
And it's funny because I think that Walter's perspective plays throughout the episode in funny ways. Like that moment, the way where in Walter's version of the story, he gives himself a bad ending because that's what a person with a bad heart deserves.
Yeah.
Right? And it's Ella who has to rewrite it for him because Walter hasn't forgiven himself. And then I think there's also like the kind of funny twist where I think that this is one of the very few episodes where Peter saves Olivia, and that's because Walter has made up the story.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, it's all Walter.
It's just funny so because, hard. Like, they save themselves in a way because, like, Olivia's the one going, yeah, except Nina Sharp doesn't have your heart. Like, she's the one who still solved it, you know?
Yes. Like, she's a fantastic detective. And Peter had to save her for one of the only times we get in this show.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that I actually, speaking of Peter attempting to save people, leads pretty cleanly into this not X-Files episode.
I loved it.
If you did you? Good.
Yes, I liked this one.
This was whenever we actually have a friend of ours who also really enjoys Fringe. And it's just like, oh, yeah, that show that did the X-Files better than the X-Files did. And I'm like, I mean, you may not be wrong. But like one of the places that's true is in this particular episode, because any fan of the X-Files will watch this episode and be like, oh, this is a typical we're in the woods of Oregon or, you know, Washington State, and we're following a monster who may or may not be of supernatural origin. And, like, we're working with local law enforcement, which, by the way, I love Sheriff Mathis so much.
Sheriff Mathis is so great.
Mathis is the MVP of the episode. Definitely. I always love a character who walks the line of, like, knowing, like, trying to be logical and clear-headed and, like, methodical, but also knowing that I read books about, like, Bigfoot and UFOs and conspiracies. Like, okay, maybe I do want to believe, but, like, I'm trying to make sure this is, like, the reality of the situation and not just what I want the reality of the situation to be. And I'm struggling a little here.
Unlike our dear friend Peter, who just leans in. I also love that we don't find out until the end that Sheriff Mathis was just carefully compartmentalizing her feelings about Ferguson.
Yes, very carefully. Folding them nicely, putting them to boxes, putting those boxes within boxes, putting those boxes into more boxes.
And then stuffing them deep down inside.
Although, going back to Peter, going whole hog on this one, you know, it's such a, you know, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Sometimes a serial killer is just a serial killer. I don't know what to tell you.
I don't know what to say. I don't know what else there is. I mean, I always feel bad because somewhere halfway through this episode, inevitably, I always say, you know what, Peter, not everything is about you.
Yes.
Right? That's exactly what I think. Every time we get to that second female victim,
Yes.
Where he's asking all of those questions. Well, did she work here? Did she work here? Could she have seen me here? What about here? And Sheriff Mathis has to be like, dude, you need to chill. This woman is traumatized. You are not helping.
Yeah.
Get out.
Poor Krista with her mixtape.
Yes. They really didn't need to show us her being tortured that way.
Well, I mean, the reason they did it was because then they're trying to make us think that Peter's right. You know, we've seen this before. It happened to Olivia practically, except instead of the base of her spine, it's a part of her brain. You know, it
happened to Walter.
They were trying to make us think it was, in fact, the same old, and that Peter was on the right trail. They were chasing him down. Like, this is Murder Butterflies all over again.
I mean, look, at least we get the payoff at the end where we do actually know that Newton is in town with the secretary.
Yes.
Right. So Peter wasn't 100% hallucinating when he was running around in the woods. It was just poor timing, I suppose.
Yeah. I love an episode where, you know, we can't necessarily trust the main character's impression, and neither can they, you know, because there is a very genuine, like, did I make a mistake not calling the FBI, you know, towards the end of that, where she was just like, I'm out of my depth here and I'm following you. Like, the only thing I can prove is that your name is the name you say it is. And that's it. And everything else is classified or, you know, or buried. And like, did I make a mistake trusting you? And Peter doesn't know how to answer her because it's like, oh no, maybe you did. You know?
Because he's starting to doubt himself. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I love an episode like that where you don't necessarily, like, you do have all of this knowledge. Like, Peter has a lot of knowledge about the weird science of it all. And like trying to understand how pieces fit into place and like explaining to her about shapeshifters, which, by the way, I was like, and you're going to read her in about shapeshifters, but you're not going to, like, what is your NDA exactly? What are you allowed to talk about and what are you not allowed to talk about here? Like, you're using a lot of weird discretion, Peter. But like,
it's Peter being left to his own devices. Peter left to his own devices will do anything it takes to get what he wants.
Yeah.
Yes.
I actually think Nella was like, yeah, are you going to read her in about the secret shape-shifting soldiers? And then the very next scene is like, so these secret shape-shifting soldiers. And we both went, yeah, well,
there it is.
Well, there it is.
There's the banana stand. Yeah, I love Peter just being like, I know how this sounds, but
I used to not believe in any of this either, but I've seen some stuff, man. And, you know, and it sucks to like rely on that, you know, like you rely on this for so long. And then it's like, but actual like evil exists in the world without being supernatural or weird sciencey or any of the above.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know,
sometimes the monsters were us all along.
Yeah, definitely a Walking Dead situation of just like, we're all awful. It's fine. Which I think leads us back to the plot episode.
Yeah, I guess let's get back to the plot pain. Episode? Let's bring the pain.
Well, no, first we can talk about delicious strawberry flavored death. Because in this episode, there is kind of running in the background the moments with Olivia and Walter and Astrid still distraught, still looking for Peter.
Yes.
Which I liked kind of scattered throughout this.
I did too. I really enjoy, I definitely really enjoy that it's like, you know, even when Peter calls Broyles and is just like, please don't tell my father, you know, yep. I need some time and you owe me this. Like, I need to not, I need to still be, you know, unanimously lost at the moment.
Exactly. I love that Broyles tries his absolute best to follow Peter's instructions. And you know what?
Face is bad.
Also, Olivia just knows him so well.
Yeah.
This is a case of he didn't fail his deceive role. She succeeded at her rapport role, and she was able to read him and knew that he was hiding something.
Yes. No, that's 100% how that happened. I definitely think there's a whole host of things of like trying to not, like trying to find him while also trying to track him, but also, like Walter is essentially an invalid. And like he can't ignore that, and he can't hide it. He can only hide it for so long, really, is what it is. And eventually Astrid and Olivia find out, and it's just like, well, I'm supposed to call you every time I need something, and it's like, yes, that's exactly what you're supposed to do.
Actually, yes.
Why not call us?
How Walter explicitly says to Astrid what every fan of this show has been thinking all along, which is that you're a federal agent. I doubt during your years of training that you had dreams of babysitting a helpless old man. And they just make Astrid laugh it off. And I was like, what?
I know.
What? But this, of course, is also the moment that inspires Walter as Astrid is helping him clean up his house, which inspires Walter to try and use science to find Peter, which I appreciated seeing as well. Because the previous episode is Walter wallowing, right? It is Walter getting high and telling a story because Walter needs his moment. But Walter is also going to try and science this.
And that's what he's good at. He needs to play to his strengths, and that's what, that's inevitably what leads to the end of the episode where, like, you hope it's Walter that finds him, right, in that hotel room. Like, that's what you're hoping for, that's exactly what this did.
And they were so close. He was so close. So close. And you know what? It wasn't even Walter that helped find him. It was Olivia, because classic. Olivia very much carries this team.
Yes. I know. Oh my God, her shoulders must be so buff. It's just like carrying all these people around everywhere. She carries the whole team.
The whole team.
And Astrid.
Her and Astrid, so true.
No, for sure.
Because like we said, in this episode, we get to see what Peter is like without Olivia. And it's not great. Not great,
Office rocker is what it is.
Okay, anyway.
So now
we
go to the pain. Well, no, so very quickly, there's a lot that's revealed in that episode, right? And that seems to be the running theme of Fringe, where it's like, here's a bunch of plot, and then here's a couple episodes. And I don't want to call them filler, because they're not. But, like, here's a couple episodes meant to be a balm to address some of the wounds we may or may not have caused.
I think they worked.
I think they worked. But yeah, I mean, so much is revealed in this episode. Like, we learn a lot about the Mercury soldiers who shapeshift. We also, actually, Nella caught it, but, like, it's implied that Walternate is the secretary in this episode because of one of those soldiers and what he does, which is proved 2 episodes later.
So that felt pretty good for me, not gonna lie.
Yeah, love that. Love that.
We also understand, like, I love it when geometry is involved in the science to solve a problem.
Yes. Well, so the hint in this episode 19, that Walternate is the secretary, is that one of the shapeshifter embryos doesn't fully mature. And the reason it doesn't fully mature is because Dave pokes it with a shovel.
Yeah.
As it is coming into bloom.
What if the stoner youths ran when there was fireball in a deserted factory?
Then we'd be dealing with 3 shape-shifting super soldiers. Like,
yes, it's true. The shapeshifters would have found a way, and they would have found someone else to kill. But I love that entire first opening scene. Like, first he runs toward the explosion.
I know.
Then he sees goo that meteored into the building, and then he moves toward the goo and pokes it with a shovel. And I'm like, Dave!
I don't know of any marijuana in the world that would make me that brave. Like,
Dave, no!
Dave, no. Dave, yes!
Let's pour one out, though, for Dave's brave sacrifice that allowed our team to get the clue they needed.
It's true. It's true. You know what? I really don't think
the true
that this
Gollum
case would have been
of the
solved.
story.
the case would not have been solved if Dave had not poked the thing with his shovel. Yeah. So anyway, the thing wakes up on Walter's operating table.
With his poor shriveled legs.
With its poor shriveled legs, because Walter was careless in his first dissection, and I'm glad that he feels bad for that, because he should.
Yep.
The thing grabs his hand, looks him in the eye, and says, I'm sorry.
And gives all of its information, which I thought was hilarious, because I was like, oh no, this thing thinks it's among friends.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. This thing is trying to give its report to its superior, on its deathbed.
It's kind of sad.
That's rough,
right?
buddy.
Right?
That's rough, buddy.
I felt so bad. I felt so bad. And then I was just like, oh no, it thinks it's among friends. And I was like, well, I guess it died having fulfilled something. I guess.
Okay, but in terms of these shape-shifting soldiers are, I don't know, perhaps a little lacking in the logic/ration department, because can we discuss how they covered up the half-formed shapeshifter with a literal just piece of cardboard?
Yes, I said the same thing.
Like, what? You're not going to pick it up, carry it away? No?
We'll just leave this body here and cover up this malformed soldier with a piece of cardboard. That's
You're not even going to shove it in the back of your trunk to dispose of it properly? You're just going to assume that, we're witless monkeys enough that no one's going to go, huh, that's weird. Let's bring it to our team that investigates exactly weird things like this.
Well, now, wait a minute. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is Newton a human or is Newton a soldier?
A human.
I don't think it's
human.
I don't think we know yet, but we haven't seen him shapeshift. He was just a...
Here's why I think he's human. I think he's human because he doesn't have to shapeshift, but you know what? Probably... Maybe he's half-half, because there was that weird moment where his head was attaching to his body and you could see the veins kind of moving.
Yeah.
Do you know what moment I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
Mm-hmm. So he's
sorry,
yeah, you're
audio
right.
medium. I just shivered.
You're right. He's got to be a hybrid of some sort. But I think it's weird that not Charlie had to switch bodies and this guy hasn't had to yet. So he's some more evolved version. Maybe
he's something else. Yeah, he's probably something else. The reason I asked is because I was trying to figure out how the shapeshifters we saw before, the Charlie generation of shapeshifter, at least had the wherewithal to understand their missions and parameters. And I'm just did you send an infantry for this one? Because that seems really important. That you
well,
just
at least there's the one who keeps questioning Newton. But one tries.
Mm-hmm. What are you going to do about the Verona piece? Verona piece, man. Granted,
yeah.
All he had to do was break into a hospital. So not as hard as breaking into the bank.
He did cause a heart attack within his own body.
You are right. We gotta talk about the heart attack pill, because are you
swear jar?
Are you really going to tell me that it is easier for him to fake his own death than fake some swear jar paperwork that says, yes, it is I, Newton, a medical examiner in need of access to your place, temporary visitation. Hi, I'm from the health department. I'm making sure your bodies are kept in good order. I don't know. Really? You had to... Really? What world are you from, sir?
He's from the alternate world.
Well, it's a terrible place, and it should feel bad if your solution to what could otherwise be a relatively low-tech heist is, I guess I gotta kill myself.
Okay, and for them... taking that little pill is probably low tech.
Also, but by the time they put it, no, but the thing
it was just a little pill. All you did was swallow it. Whoop, easy peasy.
Here, come with me on this though. So he assumes he's going to be rolled in to this place with all of his effects on him, his clothing, the probe thing. Did he have to put the probe up his butt to smuggle it in? Did he?
I mean, did he? Do you think he did?
I think he did. And I'm just saying, you could have walked in there with some falsified papers, my friend. But no, you chose the hard route.
He chose chaos. Well, look, the fact that he had not even a suicide pill. He had a Romeo and Juliet capsule that could bring, basically he wasn't dead when they thought he was dead. But the fact that he had something like that made me go, why on earth would you leave one of your embryos unattended?
Infantry.
Right? But
I just don't think they were quite all there.
No. I need a word with Mr. Secretary about, the absolute show of these operations. Like, these are overthought, overwrought, and complex to the point of insanity. Like,
and like that's what I don't understand. Like, Mr. Secretary trusted these 3 boobs and Newton to like get him onto that bridge. And I'm just like, you would think you would send like your top dogs.
No, instead we've got the Gotham City Gallery coming in. Like,
oh God,
these poor shapeshifters.
No,
they just have to follow instructions.
Have you killed off all the better people? Are you one of those mad scientists who like has killed everyone in your experimentation, and therefore all you're left now is the dreads? Like, what's going on?
This is where Joy and I very carefully do and say nothing. And then we move on from the moment.
And then we move on. And then we go, who can say? And we move on.
Okay, so he does kill all the talent. Well, that's, you know what? That's a him problem.
And he's just not thinking very much about it.
Well, when he's standing there all alone, wondering where all the good help went and why like no one wants to work for like $9 an hour after a pandemic, and even though they don't have their like benefits coming in from the government anymore, like this seems like a you problem, sir. Not a super soldier problem.
Nella says super soldier rights. They need to unionize. Diddy Mao. Well, yes. So we learned a lot about the super soldiers. We also, unfortunately, in the worst possible way, Peter learns he's from the alternate universe.
Peter, you're just too smart for your own good, my dude.
Yeah.
Yes.
The culmination of the geometry to fix.
I loved their use of basic geometry here. I loved it.
So did I.
I loved that when you have 2 of the points on an equilateral triangle, it's just all of it. And I also love that Olivia kind of silently stares as they do all of this very basic math, because that's not really her bag, right? And then when she realizes, or when she puts 2 and 2 together, asks whether there's a bridge on that river, and the answer is yes. And she goes, oh, right, it would be on the bridge because the water would absorb the excess energy from the exchange.
Right.
Peter says nothing.
I know.
Because I was like, wait a minute. She was literally sitting silently through all of the very basic geometry, because that's not the sort of thing Olivia knows. And then she comes up with this random piece of information and Peter says nothing.
Yeah, I do. I do think it's also that like Peter notices her and Walter sharing furtive glances as well. And I sat there like, Walter knows what it is. He could literally just say that. And because Olivia is a woman of action, she was just like, well, I need to make so many phone calls so that we make sure we have the guns we need to show up at the time and the place.
Yep.
I don't have time to wait for Walter to figure out
what to
say.
Beat around the bush in this situation. We're not splitting the teams because we already know where the teams need to go. Let's do it. Or maybe Peter, to his credit, just didn't really want to undermine her in the moment by being like, dude, how do you know that? Yeah.
I mean, it's entirely possible. I think they were, the conflict in this episode is really good and really urgent. And I do think there's a lot of like, well, we can unpack that later. Like there's, like Walter trying to talk to Peter as we know about Peter being from an alternate universe, but Peter thinks it's about his mom, and having that, like, he doesn't want to push his father to talk about a thing because he doesn't necessarily know where his father is with it. And Walter being like, oh, hey, the phone rang, Saved by the Bell. Let's go do some weird science nonsense.
Right. Speaking of mom, there's that backstory you wanted, Nella.
Yes.
Super unfortunate. We don't actually, I know he said it was like when he left for Europe. So it's assumed he was like away from her for several months. And that's when it happened. It's hard to know how old he was. I want to say he was probably like between 18 and 20. Like, he had to be pretty young.
Mm-hmm.
Hard to say. And Walter was already in St. Clair's and had perhaps been there for a while, where it's not explained. They didn't explain it.
They didn't really explain it.
No.
I feel like he said, I might be making it up, but I feel like he said, you know, like, I hadn't spoken to my dad in 10 years, but I might be making that up.
I do know that he said that was the only time he spoke to Walter, when Walter was in St. Clair's, which is...
Right. outside of Olivia making him go there to release him. Yeah.
Were we looking for this story to become more tragic? Because there it is. Thanks, writers.
Yeah.
There wasn't enough tragedy.
I believe it was at that point that Nella was like, oh no, my boys. And I was like, oh, she's caring about the show.
Oh no. I know. They got me. They got me.
It's so tragic. I mean, you know, and of course it makes it even more tragic. Not only after, like, learning in the most awful way possible, Peter realizes he's from this alternate reality, because he literally doesn't die on the bridge. Yes. Because it's a science experiment you can watch. The man from our reality disintegrates. The man from their reality does not, and neither does he. And he doesn't get a look-see at who comes through. He just sees kind of like a shadow and a guy walking. But, you know, it's that this is like a proven thing that I should have been disintegrated in that, you know, in that reverberation that happens off the lake, and I was not. And then it's the awful connection of putting all those pieces together probably immediately. And then as soon as he wakes up in the hospital, he has to tell Walter.
Yep.
And he does not wait. He just tells him directly. And like, that also goes to prove, like, Olivia saying, you know, Peter would want to know. Peter would want to know this immediately. And, you know, and how well they know each other, because Peter does not waste any time in telling Walter exactly what he figured out.
And doesn't waste any time in noping right out of there. Checks himself out of the hospital that evening in the middle of the night so that no one else would be awake to see him do it. And then he's gone. Now, I think the added layer of tragedy to this is that if Olivia hadn't interrupted them with the case at the beginning of this episode, I do think Walter would have told Peter about it. He was getting ready in his Walter kind of way. I think the way he opened up that conversation was, everyone is going to die. And Peter's like, what? You know?
I know.
Like, in that, every living thing dies. That's what he says. In his roundabout way, he was going to get there.
Yeah.
And then he was interrupted. So I didn't even really read that as a Saved by the Bell moment. I read that as a really unfortunate chain of events.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, no, I definitely read it that way also. I do think he feels some kind of relief that he didn't have to say it right at that moment, because he was definitely struggling. And you can also tell, you can tell with Peter's face as well that, like, Peter was like, oh, this is going to be a very tough conversation. Like, I don't know where you're going with this, but cool. And, like, of course, in Peter's brain, the only thing that they have in common that is tough that he's aware of is his mother's death and how his father lied about it. You know, and, like, it's just this, it's so awful. It's so awful that he then, like, makes that connection as well of just, like, I guess my mother couldn't live with that anymore after I left, you know. But yeah, 100%. I think if Walter had not been interrupted, he would have told him, because that is the way to tell Peter, to be able to establish how much the grieving process had changed him and his wife. And
right, exactly. He needed a chance to tell his whole story the way he had a chance to tell it to Olivia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
100%.
Peter doesn't know about he doesn't know anything. He doesn't know anything.
Well, he doesn't even remember being sick. And, like, both Peters were sick. It's well established that they were both basically on their deathbed that very night. So, yeah,
So there's an alternate reality of this show where Walter gets to gently take Peter through this story as they bake pecan pie together, because that is what they were about to do. And then there's this. There is the reality that we were given.
The one they gave us.
Thank you, writers. They really do just like find that spot, slide the knife in and twist in this show.
I also worry about September and being like, he has not returned.
What was the warning? I don't even know. Speaking of September, I didn't get a chance to mention in the musical episode that they renamed September Mr. Gemini, and that really irritates me. And so that means there were 2 missed opportunities in that episode. One is to have that actor sing, and the second is that why wasn't he Mr. Virgo or Mr. Libra? What's going on there? Why Gemini? Unclear. My other one more thing is that I don't think we talked about Ella in that episode enough. I just don't. I think that she was so cute and so funny and so perfect in every moment that she had. You know, where she's feeding Jean throughout that entire conversation and awkwardly holding up the giant bucket of whatever it is that cows eat. I do not know. To when she first walks in and her first line after saying hello to Astrid and Uncle Walter is, "It smells funny in here." And I'm like, yeah, Ella, it probably does.
Probably smells like some brown Betty, am I right?
And then culminating, of course, in the sweet moment of her rewriting the episode for him to give it the happy ending that her childlike heart believes the story deserves. A story where the characters who are truly in love do not die, and Peter and Olivia get to dance.
Yeah.
Yes. And actually, that leads into my one more thing, because my one more thing is actually about, well, it's tangentially about Ella. Like, I love that she changes that story to be something that is not like where the evil people don't necessarily need to be punished with, you know, death, that, you know, it doesn't need to be something so grimdark that we don't even recognize ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my favorite part about that is she gives that ending, and then Walter says, "Oh yes, you know, yours was a proper ending." And this is, of course, after Olivia comes back and tells Walter that she hasn't found anything new, and Walter and Astrid and Olivia all have this grim look on their faces, and Ella is just like, "Yeah, I fixed it for you. You're welcome." And it's just this like dichotomy between like the innocent mind of a child trying to comprehend the actual grimdark that is currently happening around her, and the rest of the adults protecting her from it. And like,
I mean, that's so true. I think the contrast of that moment makes the sadness of the scene that much more obvious.
Yeah, 100%. And I love that the show doesn't shy away from juxtaposition like that. Like that's one of my favorite parts about the show, is that it doesn't fix problems in 43 minutes.
Yeah.
Like the problems will still be there.
So true. So true. Because Walter is sad and upset and distraught and looking for Peter for 3 episodes.
For 3 episodes. Well, now it looks like possibly more. I don't know.
Possibly more. Who knows? Unclear.
What they did to Nina's hair in a noir detective story. How dare they? How dare they? What were they thinking? Who did she anger in costuming?
What were they supposed to do with her hair?
Not that.
Because I don't know. I know the answer is not that, but because I don't know, I am curious.
Rolls. It was like the curls were like brushed out, like it was not lying. Whatever wig they used that day was awful. Like, did they get it out the back box and didn't brush it out properly? Like, we literally could have just done some, like, really, like, I know she's got, like, the bangs in usual hair, but we could have done some fun things. Like, still, like, I'm a professional businesswoman, but, like, why? Why would you do that to Nina Sharp? I can't believe, no, how dare. How dare. How dare.
I have this really odd blind spot where I don't know how to spot a wig. And I think this is my moment to admit that, because you mentioned that, if you had told me that was real Nina's hair just all the way through this, the actor's real hair all the way through this show, I would have believed you. Is that not her hair?
the way it was like lying on her head, like, maybe it was, but like whoever did that hair did her dirty. Like, but it had a wig-like appearance, though. It was very strange and unfortunate.
It is a major blind spot of mine. I cannot spot a wig.
Fall right.
No, nothing fell right.
People had to tell me that the hair in The Witcher was a wig. And I was like, it's a wig? They're like, yeah, Danielle.
Yeah, but that's a good wig.
I was like, okay.
See, but that's okay because that's a good wig.
A bad wig isn't even necessarily easy to spot, but it's always just like, oh, why would you do that?
Yeah.
Whether or not it's a wig is ultimately like, it's still a why would you do that?
Tragic.
I don't know. Maybe it was humid that day and all her curls fell out. I have no idea.
But we hire professionals for this.
I know.
They can work magic no matter the environmental, difficulties you're facing on set. No, somebody had it out for the actress. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
All right. I'll believe you. I really don't know anything about costuming or wigs or any of that. Anyone who's in that, actually, tell me more about it. I'd love to hear.
Yeah. Let us know. Let us know in the comments. Email us and tell us about it.
Is that it? Did we do it? Should we end on a positive note? What if I just talk about Peter and Olivia for a hot second?
Yeah, you can
talk about Peter and Olivia. What if I talk about how a hot shower is better than drowning in a pine coffin? So she's feeling much better, thank you.
Yeah.
They were so cute in that episode.
They were.
So
I kind of love that, like, the show got to let them be cute because the episode is fake. It's not real.
It was all a dream.
It was all a dream.
Yeah, no, one of my favorite things is when he's like, do you like jazz or do you like to go out dancing? And she was like, jazz, not so much, but I do like to dance. And he was like, oh, see, totally opposite. I hate to dance. I'd take you though. Oh yeah.
Super cute.
That entire breakfast scene. Precisely after she says that she wants someone who will take care of her and feed her when she's hungry and occasionally take her dancing. And there he is.
And keep her warm, which he literally does the second that she meets him.
That's true. That's very, very true. Throwing whatever around her shoulders and giving her a hot shower. All right. There we go. Hot shower. Better than drowning in a pine coffin. And that's the way we're going to end the podcast episode.
There it is.
Okay. All right, listeners, we would love to hear from you. Please check us out at Binge O'Clock Pod on Twitter and Facebook, where you can answer the question, what song must be on a mixtape made for you? You can also email us at bingeoclockpod@gmail.com. And don't forget, we have a Patreon. Find us at patreon.com/clockpod.
That's right. And tell your friends, tell your family, tell your loved ones, tell the live lobsters in your life about Binge O'Clock, and we will see you next time.